Welcome to the Fourth Branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening.
Society has always relied on a few to take the human race to the next frontier. Evolution, progress, does not really require a crowd. Only a few individuals with dedication, determination, and will. As such, we at the Fourth Branch have embraced the task to help save democracy in America. The biggest problem is the fact that there is indeed a high level of ignorance in the country. Wayne Dyer said that the highest form of ignorance is when you reject something you don't know anything about. Here we say, if you want to be part of the solution, join us, or just simply get out of the way. Dalai Lama said that where ignorance is our master, there is no possibility of progress. Here in the United States, we are in dire need of a leader. And without a leader, we cannot have any progress. The Fourth Branch, in the meantime, is here to fill the void and help remove ignorance in order to help save our democracy. Ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy. It is, however, the ignorance of the ignorance which represent the greatest danger to society. It is what turns an ignorant man into a lunatic. Thus lies the danger, the peril even of a man, a community, a state, a country, yes, even a society. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Indeed, it does. We've seen it, have we not? We've witnessed it. We are all living it, are we not? All men are born ignorant. Many have chosen to stay and live in ignorance. Only a few recognize ignorance is indeed the root and stem of all evil and choose to be ignorant no more. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch program. First, a warning. This program is not suitable for all audiences. I repeat, the content of this program is not for everyone. To find out if it's suitable to you, answer the following two questions. Question 1. Would you entrust your teenage daughter to a non-rapist? Question 2. Would you have a non-pedophile cared for your toddler? Once again, question 1. Would you entrust your teenage daughter to a non-rapist? Question 2. Would you have a non-pedophile cared for your toddler? Your time is up, obviously. If you had difficulty answering either question, this program is not for you. If you answer yes to either or to both questions, this program is definitely not for you. But if both of your answers are absolutely not, this program is catered exclusively to you. You should stick around. It is enlightening, educational, and informative. Join me here on the fourth branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday.
And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the fourth branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment.
Welcome to the fourth branch program. I am MD. Today, we are going to start a series on the Environmental Protection Agency. Yes, the EPA. You may recall during a presidential debate, there was Rick Perry who ended up losing all grounds to continue his campaign for the presidency of the United States because, well, that was just that agency. He could not recall out of 3 agencies that he wanted to get rid of. But we decided to talk about the EPA for very different reasons. Not just because Republicans want to get rid of it, but because the EPA has a very important task it plays, not just for the nation, but in our lives, in our very existence. But before we begin, we have 2 other subjects that we wish to address that justified outrage. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's next after the midterm election. And we will start today the debate on the role of the EPA in the country. But those two subjects we ought to address first because they are of importance as well for our own existence here in the United States. I'll be right back. Why is the United States not outraged? Why are the legislators, Democrats and Republicans, not outraged that the White House has declared war on a member of the media? Why is the whole media institution not up in arms over this matter? You see, in 1933, a man by the name of Adolf Hitler, appointed Chancellor of Germany, used a similar approach as Donald Trump has done, as the White House has done, to begin to delegitimize one publication after another, the media. It is chilling. Adolf Hitler was so successful that affronts to his neighbors went unnoticed. Nobody knew about it. Germany was attacking their neighbors, at times depriving them of their basic necessities. But the world was completely unaware of that. By the time the world became aware of the problem, the situation was so grave, so critical. That's what would trigger a spark which ignited World War II. This is no small matter. When the leader of a nation, a democratic nation at that, so was Germany at that time, known as the Weimar Republic, with a system of democracy almost similar to what we have here. They had the Reichstag and the Reichsrat, which are equivalent to Congress and the House, and the Senate rather. Under the Trump administration, the only factor which prevents Donald Trump from acting like Adolf Hitler is the presence and the relentlessness of the media. The president's actions are not any different from any authoritarians. But what makes it even worse is the fact that the legislative branch, since Donald Trump took over the presidency of the United States, the legislative branch, which is completely in the hands of the Republicans, have been doing nothing but rubber stamping every action, just like the Reichstag and the Reichsrat did for Adolf Hitler in Germany in 1933. You see, it is a parallel that you cannot ignore. And we know how it ended. It is unacceptable for any administration, Democrat or Republican, to try to undermine the free press. You see, what made it possible for Adolf Hitler to become the monster that we know today of is the fact that at that time it was the silence of many, the consent of a few, and yes, the indifference which strengthened the hands of Adolf Hitler to become the fiercest and the cruelest dictator of the 20th century. Let's not repeat history. Let's not make the same mistake. It was costly. It will be equally, if not even more so, more costly today. I'll be right back. Join me here on the fourth branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday.
And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the fourth branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment.
It is very difficult to sympathize with the loss of the Republican Party in the midterm election, or to rejoice with the Democrats who claim a win so big it ought to be called a blue wave. Hardly. On the one hand, the country had suffered the most serious affront in the hands of a foreign entity, and quite possibly with the collaboration of the Republican leader, the President of the United States. But Republican legislators who have been in control of both houses had deliberately chosen to ignore, to shrug off, at times to support, to defend, and for some to even work with the president to prevent any light from being shed on what will go down in history as the biggest affront to our democracy. A loss the Republicans deserve, but a loss they didn't get. On the other hand, it was a glimmer of hope that the people, at least some of them, at the very least the sound-minded individuals, the patriots, opted to remedy the situation by voting out of office a great number of Republicans who violated the trust we placed in them. You see, the Republic can only be as strong as those we trust to carry out the task for which we chose them do indeed honor the trust we placed in them. The past 2 years prove a very different story. Legislative members of the Republican Party have done more to deceive than to legislate. As such, a correction was necessary, but that was not the correction we expected. The Democrats did not win. The Republicans did not lose. The country took the necessary steps to preserve the democracy we have, both Republican and Democrat, all enjoyed for really 2 centuries now. What we hope for is that the correction is a step to begin the complete removal of those we can no longer trust, those who have attended to their own self-interest, those whose concern of the people are far from being their priority. We, as a country, deserve better. George Washington, our first president, warned us all to guard against the imposture of pretended patriotism. You see, Republicans always claim to be patriot. It's a word and expression they can use at will, but their actions are really far from being such. That's what George Washington warned us against. Even Ron Paul, Yes, Rand Paul's father, a contemporaneous politician, understands that real patriotism requires a willingness to challenge the government, to challenge your own party when it is wrong. And the Republican Party for the past 2 years has been nothing but wrong. No one needs to be a genius to see that legislators in the Republican Party have voluntarily and deliberately damaged the foundation of our nation. Not a single individual in the Republican Party after the departure of John McCain had the decency to stand up to defend the country and to honor the oath they all took to uphold the Constitution. The 2018 midterm election was no victory. It was an outcome. Many such are needed. We as a country should appreciate, if only to help redress some of the damage inflicted by the Republican Party. But Blue Wave, it was not. The purge of the useless elements such as Devin Nunes, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Chuck Grassley, Orrin Hatch, and the likes should continue in order to help reinstate trust in our government and strengthen the institutions which have made America the envy of the world. George H.W. Bush said, "I do not want an America that is closed to the world. What I want is a world that is open to America." Needless to preach you that today the world cannot run far away enough from America. Under the Republican leadership, if we can call the past two years leadership, the world has moved away from America. To keep up with the agenda of the fourth branch, we will continue the program here by discussing topics which impact our lives and have the potential to impact those of future generations. Today, we begin a series on the Environmental Protection Agency, yes, the EPA, the agency that can determine the fate of mankind. I'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watched powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question?
I'm telling you, Michael Jordan himself was right here in my McDonald's. I fixed him the very first McJordan special.
Right, Bill.
I did. I took a quarter-pound of pure beef, smoked bacon, cheese, and some of my favorite barbecue sauce, and I named it the McJordan Special.
Bill, the sandwich, definitely great.
Yeah, but you got the cooling with that story.
But it's true.
How you doing, Bill?
Hi, Michael. Michael.
The McJordan Special, for a limited time.
There was no blue wave. And because of that, we as a country will still have to cope with a great number of issues that we may not be able to resolve yet. As such, it is important that we all stay engaged in order to make certain that we take back the running of our government. No longer should we trust our elected officials to simply promise that they are going to take care of us, but once they go to Washington, they completely forget that the primary task that they have is to cater to our interests, not to theirs, not to the lobbies. As such, discussing E.P.A. today is fitting. The Environmental Protection Agency was ironically created by a Republican. Oh yes, that's why sometimes it is difficult to grasp the rationale or the logic that today's Republicans have. Now, the country has always had problems. This is politics, and there is no such thing as perfect solution. But to any rational, sound-minded individual, it doesn't require a PhD to appreciate the importance of an agency, the E.P.A., whose primary job is to help protect the environment. Sounds very simple, doesn't it? You clean your house because you may not like, or you may realize that to live in a dirty house is not healthy. I'm certain you wash the dish, the utensils that you use before you use them again. Otherwise, you could have used them over and over and just put them someplace and keep using them. But you were well aware of the fact that if you do not take care or do not clean up, at some point you will pay the consequences, your health at the very least. So those things are rather very simple. Aren't they? You don't need anybody to tell you that it is important, it is necessary that whatever we use should be clean, should not have any harmful effect in our health. Now, naturally, we do things in this life that are already causing that. The car that we drive, that's the outcome of evolution. Pollute the air to a certain extent, the planes, and so on. So it falls almost exclusively on the government, and for good reason, because anything that's en masse in the country, it is difficult for any single individual or even a state to rein in. So we rely on our government to take action which help protect us, whether it's security because of threat from another government or because of national threats such as what we're talking about, matter related to the environment. So Richard Nixon, yes, the same Richard Nixon that was impeached. Richard Nixon was smart enough or understanding enough or concerned enough to realize that if his administration didn't do anything about the state of affairs, meaning the environment, at some point we, mankind, will suffer. Now, Richard Nixon could have simply shrugged it off because we can only live so long. Mankind today can live 100 years, maybe a few decades added to that, 120, 130. But beyond that, this is over. So any administration could have simply shrugged the whole problem off. But we do have to give credit to Richard Nixon because, well, no man is perfect. Yes, he did things that require for him to be impeached. After all, he was the president of the United States, and as president, the country expects a higher level of decency, a higher level of morality from that individual. Now, who am I kidding? Look who is in the Oval Office today. Well, that's a story for another day. But get to the point that Richard Nixon, being a concerned citizen, not just for himself, but for future generations. And that's what differentiates then, Republican then, from Republican today. There was some level of decency, some level of morality, some form of community interest. If it's going to harm a majority, a group, there was a great likelihood that that matter would be looked at, discussed, debated by both parties. According to history, Richard Nixon didn't have any problem putting this agency through. What a difference it makes. Republicans propose something that sounds logical, that's good for the environment, that's good for society. Democrats did not have any problem with that because if the environment is safe, it's not just for the Republican, right? Everybody would benefit. So that's what rational people do. They go along with legislations that benefit everybody. It doesn't matter which party you belong to. This planet, that's the only one we have. Scientists are working as hard, as fast as they can to find, maybe there is someplace else that there is possibility for us to live, but as of date, nothing yet. In other words, we have to protect what we have, planet Earth. this habitat. That's the only place we can live without wearing masks, without having some form of ways for us to breathe. Those people that we send to the moon, to space, they have to be wearing this huge suit fitted with oxygen tank. Because up to this point, we have not conquered any place that would provide us the ability to live the life that we live here, like walk without any care in the world. So planet Earth needs to be protected. Some 40 plus years ago, actually almost 50 years now, an administration was concerned enough to say we have to do something about that, because we cannot let the environment, the habitat, the only one that we have, to be simply wiped out by toxic material, by polluted air, because we breathe the air and we're supposed to inhale oxygen. And that's what our system needs, just that, oxygen. When we breathe, when we inhale. Even when we exhale material, chemical that our body no longer needs. So which means we put it back into the atmosphere. But what makes this discussion important enough for you to be concerned is because if you've been watching presidential debate after presidential debate, Republican exclusively, single-handedly, always beating the drum of getting rid of the EPA. Now, I fail to follow the logic, but give it to a Republican candidate to explain to you why. First, they don't believe in climate change. Oh, who cares? We don't have EPA. There is no climate change. And besides, they tell you that regulation put on EPA stifle businesses. And I try to understand exactly what that means. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, set rules and regulations. We will come back tomorrow to discuss in greater detail and to show you not only the importance of that agency, but why we, the constituent, should also be involved and concerned whenever we hear legislators, and I guarantee you don't have to follow Democrat, Republican legislators are talking about the EPA, because they are always the one who are gung-ho about curtailing the work that EPA can do. They want to handcuff the agency to prevent any kind of regulation, any kind of guideline from being enforced, from being applied. And this is where I got lost. And this is where, if you are not concerned, that may simply tell me that you may not appreciate the importance of the agency, or you may not care about future generations, your kids, your grandkids, or your great-grandkids. And the reason I said all that is because the EPA main job is to protect the environment. The most simplistic way of explaining it to you is that picture of those Secret Service agents whose main sole job are to protect the President of the United States. They don't have any other task. Just when you see them, whether it's inside a vehicle where the president is traveling, or outside, or on the air on a plane, their main sole reason for being in the job they have is to protect an individual. That individual happened to be the president of the United States. There are over 32,000 Secret Service agents, and although they have, depending on where they are in that agency, they have different tasks that they do that may not look like, may not sound like that they doing what's necessary to protect the president, but that's all they do. A few of them may be tasked just to surf the internet. That's all they do. It sounds like a tedious job, but the purpose of that job is to make sure that they know what's coming, they understand what's coming, they monitoring people that are talking about the president, people that are saying things that may be construed as a threat. And of course, the minute that something comes, they pass it to the next level, who decide what to do with it. The EPA main job, sole job, is to protect the environment, the only one we have. There is not many options for us here, mankind. We don't have many options. There is only one, planet Earth. But the irony of this whole thing is the fact that when Richard Nixon proposed the EPA, because it was very clear to his administration that unless something was done at some point, it would be impossible, unbearable for we, mankind, to live in this planet. People, community who live near electric grid have a high risk of developing cancer. It's proven. In fact, a lot of people who develop cancer later on find out that they didn't know that then, but they found out later because as data were being collected to find out that individuals who are being affected, there was one common denominator among all those people. They all live in a particular area that had an electrical grid. So we get to know and understand that it is not a livable area for people. So if there is a huge setting of grid, electrical grid, and people shouldn't live nearby because they will develop cancer. Now, it is impossible for me to comprehend the rationale, the Republican rationale, to strip the agency of the power, the EPA that is, of the power to enforce rules, guidelines, which help protect our environment, water that we drink, the air that we breathe. And the explanation for it is, well, regulations are bad for business. Now, the constituent, unfortunately, the Republican constituent in particular, I not only wrote a lot of articles about that, but I also produced a few months ago a few videos which clearly show that for natural reason that Republicans are more inclined to actually be led astray by people, by legislators or pundits who tell them some stories, and they're more open to accept those misinformation, disinformation, or distorted information over actual data information that's proven. It is not difficult to understand, and I strongly encourage you to visit the People Branch YouTube channel, because those were discussed in great detail to explain the problem. And of course, if you understand the problem, maybe you can work some way to sift through the kind of information that you accept as Republican. So it is difficult for me to understand the rationale from our legislators who are supposed to legislate on our behalf, who are supposed to bring to the table legislation that improve our lives, but instead they work to harm us, to hurt us, not out of ignorance, because they know they have that information, they have the data, but they believe they can convince the constituent that regulation is what makes it impossible to grow the economy. And they sell the constituent, their Republican constituent on that, who say, the hell with regulation, let's just have business. But pause for a moment. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to have a bachelor degree. You don't have to have a master's degree. You don't have to have a doctorate degree in order to understand that simple fact. Regulation by E.P.A., for instance, that will fine companies, industries that produce a lot of toxic material, and initially those companies, they did not have any plan of disposing of the residuals of those toxic material. So what did they do? They just go and dump it into our rivers. Now, you may not understand the gravity of toxic material being dumped on or near rivers, source of water. They material, chemical, toxic, they absorb by the environment, they sift through, and they infiltrate our water system, and we use it at home, we drink it, we use it to take shower, we use it to cook. That's a simple explanation, a simple understanding that whatever goes into our river will be absorbed by our body, whether through taking shower, cook, or drink. And the role of the E.P.A. is to discourage those companies from doing that. why would that not be? Why would a legislator come and say, the hell with those legislation, the hell with those guidelines? Let those people just dump chemical into our rivers. They don't say it that way. I'm dramatizing here. But the outcome is the same. If you remove the legislation, you remove the laws, the guideline, and you remove the fine that they will have to pay if they do that, once you remove that, that's exactly what you say. Why in the world would you continue to support those legislators? Now, you may not understand the impact, the lifetime impact, the long-term impact of absorbing toxic material into your body. You may not feel sick immediately. You may not even see anything for years, just like those people who live near or under electrical grid. They did not develop cancer the next day. It took years of exposure before they found out that that's what caused it. So that's really what we, the constituent, are up to here. We have legislators who ease things for industries. They ease things for industry. Remove guidelines, remove laws, remove fine. Just let them dump things anywhere they want. In exchange, you already know the drill. In exchange, they get campaign finance money. Now that sounds like a straightforward business transaction, except for one problem. We, the people, we have a price to pay. And it is not a small price. It is a very, very big price. We're paying it with our health. We're paying it with our lives. And it is a guarantee that future generation will pay a much bigger price than just their lives. And we'll show you that in our next episode, which is tomorrow at 2 p.m. I strongly invite you to continue watching this program, because this particular topic is not, at first I used to think of the EPA as a boring agency until I start doing research and start getting an understanding of the importance of the agency. In fact, I would say for mankind in particular, this is probably one of the most important agencies that we have here in the United States. Now, we heard about agencies that try to defend us from foreign entities and so on. Those are fine. I mean, don't get me wrong. They are important as well. But the EPA is not just about national security. It is what can help make our lives better, what can sustain lives here in this planet. This is not anything compared to any agency we have. So when I hear Republicans getting on their high horse, trying to convince their constituent that rules and regulations are bad for business, what good would business be if we're all dead? What good would business be if we all suffer of poor health because of those very kind of problems? for reasons that have yet to grasp, Republican legislators, no matter which topic, which issue that you decide to address, you don't have to look far to see that for their own reason that I try to understand, they do things in ways that harm the constituent, not that helps or that help to improve, but that harm the constituent. Again, not because out of ignorance. We know that because those individuals, those legislators, they have staff of people that do research for them, that provide them with information, data. And Library of Congress is where all information about everything reside. So they have the information at their fingertips. And yet, they decide time and again to bring legislation that simply curse the people, the constituent, harm the constituent. So the blue wave that the Democrats are talking about, I don't know what blue wave they're talking about. They still have a number of people that they Republicans sent back to Washington, those very individuals that I'm talking about. Those people were reelected and sent back to Washington. We'll be right back.
Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the Fourth Branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment.
In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that Democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. I hope you enjoyed this program and join me again tomorrow at 2 p.m. for another episode of the role of the EPA in the country. In the meantime, if you have any comment, criticism, or you have a topic you would like us to research and talk about, do not hesitate to contact us, because the job is to make certain we get to a more perfect union. And that can only be achieved by removing ignorance from the equation. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon or a great evening, whichever that happened to be. I hope to see you tomorrow. Good day. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Join me on our next social media broadcast. See you then.
The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.